Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Today I'm interviewing like my brother from another mother, I think. We're here with Nomad, also known as Michael Ripoll. He's an A-list first call session guitarist out of LA. He's also an incredibly accomplished artist, career guitarist, and composer. His musical style, much like his Cuban-Italian heritage, is a hybrid of genres touching on everything from pop, rock, Latin, soul, classical, and jazz. Although the guitar being his primary instrument, Nomad is fluent in over a dozen stringed and fretted instruments such as the Cuban tres, the dobro, the mountain dulcimer, Egyptian oud, the banjo, the cavaquinho, and the ukulele. And I would really encourage you to check him out on YouTube because you could see Nomad playing a lot of these instruments, and he's a master of them all. Go to YouTube and just look up Nomad or look up Michael Ripoll, R-I-P-O-L-L. And, man, it's really interesting, some of these instruments he plays, and what blows my mind is that he's proficient at all of them. And I'm not blowing smoke because he's from the hood, so I can't do that. He'd know. Nomad's guitar-based compositions are in circulation, and check this out, over 200 films, television shows, commercials, and chart-topping albums. He's been fortunate enough to work with iconic composers such as Danny Elfman, Men in Black 3, and I think he's done dozens of movies. What was that movie with Jamie Foxx out in the desert? Man, I can't think of it. He's done Senior Moment. He's done a ton of movies. John Powell, who did the Lorax, Happy Feet 1 and 2, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, P.S. I Love You. And it was his work with A.R. Rahman, however, that led him to singing and playing on the track Airport Adventures, featured in the 2012 movie soundtrack People Like Us. As a session musician, Nomad's most recent album credits include working with Grammy Award-winning producers such as David Foster, who's produced tons of various artists, Walter A. on the Barbra Streisand Partners album, and Kenny Babyface Edmonds as a studio guitarist playing on albums by the following artists: Celine Dion, Justin Bieber, Aretha Franklin, Colby Calliet. Did I say that right? Calais. Yeah, I got to work on my French. After several instrumental albums, Nomad released his first vocal project under the alias Nomad. Imagine that. His first single, Love Me Back, won Best Adult Contemporary Song at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards, and his latest single, called Dream, was released early in 2005. And let me tell you, when you should go to SoundCloud. Was it on SoundCloud?
SoundCloud.com, Nomad's Place.
Yeah, look up this song called, which is the one I like, High, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Man, what a song. I was like, almost in tears. Honestly, it was a beautiful, beautiful song. Go to SoundCloud and look up Nomad's Collection and look up the song High. I got it on.
Yeah.
Let me change that. Anyway, it's a beautiful song. It really is pretty. While he remains an artist and composer first, he's also been the musical director and guitarist for world-renowned Grammy Award-winning artist and songwriter Kenny Babyface Edmonds for the last 7 years. He's also the author of a book called The Career Guitarist, a book which helps professional guitarists navigate their way through the music industry. And for the record, this bio is just the tip of the iceberg. He's literally played on 3 pages long worth of movie soundtracks and another 5 to 6 pages worth of studio sessions. Man, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here, Craig.
And he's also a really cool dude. Like I said, he's like my brother from another mother. Anyway, before we do anything, I want to clear up this confusion because everybody's going to be like, explain Nomad, the name.
Okay. Well, it's really simple. First of all, Craig and I are from the same hood, like you mentioned. We're both from New York, Strong Island, baby. As we're putting up the guns right now. All right, just had to clear that up.
All right.
So, number 2. So my name is Michael, not Mike. Michael. So, but everybody calls me Mike. Or if your name is Michael, they call you Mike. If your name is Jonathan, they call you John, Robert, Rob, and so on. So I never liked that. But then my last name is even worse. So my father is from Cuba, or we say Cuba, Matanzas, Cuba, which is a town that's probably about 300 miles away from, 200 miles away from Havana. It might not even be that far. I don't think so, because Cuba is not that big.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. 200 miles, I'm thinking.
It might be like 80 miles.
Maybe
Okay,
like
whatever.
yards or something.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So my father's from Cuba, but his last name is Ripoll. But everybody thinks because my mom is Italian, so I'm Cuban Italian, bam, bam. Everybody thinks that, oh, Ripoli, Ripolini. They always do that. You know, it's like, no, my father's Cuban. So that's where the name comes from. Now, dig this. You ready? There's a long story, but I'm getting to the point. Ripoll is the most common name in Colombia, South America. It's as common as Smith in America. And guess who else has the same last name? Shakira. Oh. So the big Latin artist, the big Latina artist, her real last name is Ripoll. Now, everybody for some reason thinks that Ripoll is, like I said, Italian. Anyway, so what happened was over the years of working, everybody's calling me Mike, and then Ripoli, Ripoli, Ripple, Ripolo, the worst one, who was a producer in Nashville, and he knows who he is, and if he ever listens to this, he'll get a kick out of it. But when I see him again, I'm going to knock him on the head. He started calling me RuPaul. So I was like, that's it. F this. I am not doing that no more. So anyway, as time had it and evolution, the evolution of my career, took place, I started becoming more of an artist anyway, which is what I always wanted to do from day one, and we will talk about that directly. And then I came up with Nomad because, number one, everybody mispronounced my name, and I love the concept of a one-name artist alias. Think Prince, think, Sting, think Cher, think whatever you want to think, Slash, so go on. Charlie Parker was Bird, you know what I mean? John Coltrane was Train, so however, whatever genre or category or timestamp you want to put on it, there's some seriously iconic cats, as you were, quote unquote, that have used the one name alias. Now, I'm not saying that I'm putting myself in that category, because I'm not. I believe humility must come first. But what I am saying is, from a marketing standpoint, it's a lot easier to remember, man, I know that guy Nomad. Yeah, I really like that guitar. I remember that. Versus, yeah, that guy Michael Ripoll. You're never going to remember that. No, everybody's going to be like, what the hell? So when you say Nomad, oh, yeah, that's a dope guitar solo by Nomad. That's a dope guitar solo by Santana. That's a killing guitar solo by Van Halen. Yeah. As soon as you hear these one-word things, you're like, bam. So that's the reason. Oh, and then the other reason is, sorry, you were going to take your Starbucks.
No,
go ahead.
Man, go ahead. Do your thing.
The other reason is because I've been a modern-day nomad, because my father was, born in Cuba, came to the States as a young man. But when he came to the States, he landed in Florida, then he went to New York, back and forth. I was born in New York, born and raised for 15 years, the first 15 years of my life. Then we moved to Florida. Then we moved back to New York. Then we moved to Florida. Then I met my first wife, and we moved to Nashville. And then we moved to Japan to do a gig for a year. And we moved back to Nashville. And here's the thing. By the time, so I'm 45 now. Quiet. Don't let that out of the bag. But in 45 years of living, I've had over 25 physical addresses. So there you have it. That's the Nomad story. Sorry, that was long.
Sure, Nomad. No, that's good. And it's good because the fact that I'm having now one-name celebrities on the show obviously means my stock is rising in the entertainment world.
Hey, you're Larry King over here.
That's right. Yeah. All righty, man. Hey, real quick before we get started, you also have like a hidden talent that I notice when watching a lot of videos on YouTube, like probably 24 of them. And I think you're the world's most accomplished guitar tosser. Like, what's the deal with that? How did that evolve? I mean, like, you're not like throwing a guitar to a guy like at the other end of the desk. You're like winging it across the stage, man. Like, how the hell, what's up? How did that start? And how did that, that's a cool thing.
That's so funny. I think we have a bunch of archived new ones. I'm going to make a volume 2 of that. Especially now that I'm in better shape, I'd be more proud of it. But man, I love rock and roll, man. But I love flamenco, and I love any kind of Latin music. But I also love classical music. But I also love R&B and soul. So like I love everything. So I ended up getting this gig with Babyface because that's one of the things I pride myself on, is being extremely versatile and extremely authentic to whatever genre I'm playing. So that being said, I'm playing an R&B gig with Babyface, but I still love the rock and roll attitude, the that mindset, and so does he as a performer. He is he's a rock star, like Babyface. He runs out into the audience, rips off his shirt. He does crazy shit, man. He's amazing. I love him. And he's a great guy to work for, believe me. So we have this high energy show. So I'm like, at the end of the show, to me, it's always anticlimactic. You see the artist, the main, let's say when you're with just an artist, whether it's Shakira or, freaking J-Lo or Ariana Grande or, Prince. That's the main artist. But then you have the backing band. And the backing band was always like, oh yeah, thanks guys, we did a good show. Okay, see you next time. Bye. I'm like, fuck that. The backing band needs to be like giving some fury,
Yeah.
Mine was when he left the stage, every time he would take a bow, he would go out the center of the stage where he always goes out, he does his thing. And then I get the band all hype. And I'm conducting with both hands like a mad scientist conductor. So bringing the band to a huge dynamic crescendo, right? And then I turn around and get the audience all hyped. And the audience is already hyped because they're screaming, they want Babyface. So then I start making them yell and go like, Babyface, baby. So we're screaming. Everybody's going nuts. So here you are at this R&B concert with the fucking roof being torn off. And everybody's just going nuts. And because of my natural energy, like, I don't need to do drugs. I'm just wired. So I just ripped the guitar off one night and threw it at my guitar tech. And surprisingly, he caught it.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, his name is Mike. I said, and his name is Mike for real, by the way. It's M-Y-K-E. M-Y-K-E, and that's on his birth certificate.
Is he like is he a hillbilly or something?
Yeah, that's so funny. Anyway, but he's Mike. So I said, Mike, sorry to tell you, but that's going to happen every night. And that was 5, 6, 7 years ago. No, that's at least 6 years ago.
So you're throwing your real guitars over there, and he's catching them.
Okay. I've thrown Gibson 335s.
Wow.
I've thrown Strats. I've thrown every kind of telly you can imagine. I've thrown Godin custom job. I throw them all. I don't care.
And he catches them.
He's caught them all. He's how do you say? I'm not a sports guy, so how do you say? He's like 0-0.
No, he's undefeated.
Undefeated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so lame.
That's wild.
Sports guy, sorry, but yeah. So the thing is, he never drops them. But here's my thing, Craig, and I think if anybody does try this at home, because I'm not going to give the disclaimer, hey, it's your property, you can do what you want with it. Just don't say I told you to do it.
Right.
But my thing is, guitar is nothing but, a possession. And it's just an object of wood and steel and metal, so wood and metal. And I'm blessed I have a lot of guitars, but I'll have a lot of guitars because I've worked really hard for them, or I've, made deals, I've traded, or I endorsed a lot of companies, whatever. But, man, I don't get that attached to guitars. You know how some people say they're just so attached to their instruments? That's not me.
Yeah.
So.
No,
anyway.
I think I don't get attached to stuff either. I get attached to people. That's like about it. Like I'm not a stuff guy.
There you go. Like I'm attached to my wife and daughter.
Yeah. That's about it. I'm not like everybody. I mean, and I thank God nothing happened. But that was not a concern of mine when the hurricane was supposed to come here. That was the last thing I got insurance. I was like, okay, whatever. I was just concerned about my wife and kids and the cats.
You ever have those moments? Sorry, real quick.
No,
you ever have those moments where you think, wow, really, at the end of life, after I go, all this stuff is going to be here. Well, who's going to get it?
Right.
And after a while, I just start to think, well, man, this is a lot of stuff. I don't let it influence me.
Yeah, you're not going to be thinking about, your guitars. You're going to think about maybe your performances or the experiences you had related to music, but you're not going to, there's no way in hell you're going to be thinking about, man, that custom Gibson I had, that Les Paul, unless there's something wrong with you. Hey, man, you do a lot of stuff. You're like a super accomplished guitar player in the studio, performer, producer, and you do a lot of licensing. Is there any one of these that you like doing better than the others, and if so, why?
That's tough.
Okay.
So to answer your question, no, I don't prefer one over the other. The problem is, Craig, I really like the variety, and I say that it's not a problem, but I really enjoy the variety of doing many different things. I am naturally an attention seeker, a ham. I'm not an attention seeker. I'm just a ham. I don't know. I'm good. I have one-liners. I'm just, I'm spontaneous. I like ribbing, as you were. Like I grew up with two brothers. I was the oldest of three. And all we did in the house was just sarcastic banter all the time, 24/7, and my folks are like that too. So it's weird. So I really enjoy the performance aspect of it. I'm a ham, I guess. I love being in the studio because I'm a meticulous ham. I like to really hone in on something and just create this incredible composition or song or production. So I love being in the studio. The licensing aspect is more of a business aspect.
Yeah.
I've always had a good business acumen, so to speak. So I love doing business. I love cutting deals. I love the art of the deal, although I'm not the best at it. I'm still learning, So yeah, to answer your question, I like them all.
That's cool, man. Are you mentioned your folks? Are they still around?
Yeah. No, not good. Thank God. My dad's doing well. He had a cancer bout, but he's recovered now, and my mom's doing well. So
are they back? Were they in Florida?
Yeah,
that's cool. And they're together.
They're not too far from you. They're in Melbourne. Yes, they're in Melbourne Beach, Florida.
Oh, on the on the East Coast. Yeah. That's not that far.
East Coast.
I know exactly what it is. So you've worked with some really iconic people. So I'm curious how you got the gig and what was the biggest takeaway or lesson that you might have learned from some of these folks. And I'll just go down a few of them. Barbra Streisand.
So I got that gig through Kenny, which is AKA Babyface. He was co-producing the album with Walter A. And he basically just said, yeah, I want to bring in my guitar guy. And Walter said, sure. So I spent about 2 weeks in the studio with them on and off, making the guitar, cutting the guitar parts. Not 2 weeks consecutive, on and off. So that was definitely a relationship, hookup. And I will say this, 90% of the work you get as a quote unquote, what I call a career musician is really, relationship based. It's all word of mouth,
Was she in the studio at all, Barbra Streisand, when you were there, or no? No,
she was not. No, because at that point they had already cut the songs with the full rhythm section and the orchestra, and they also cut her vocals.
Okay.
So I came in as what we call like a sweetener. So I'm coming in to sweeten the track with some cool little guitar overdubs here and there. In some cases, I was playing acoustic that's more foundational, but even still, you can do that after the fact. And that's primarily because of the type of producers that Babyface and Walter A. are. They typically do everything in MIDI first. So they have a virtual musical production track, right? And then they start adding live instrumentation to it later.
That's opposite to like Nashville, isn't it?
Yeah, it's extreme opposite of Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So Babyface, you've worked with him a long time. How did you initially get the gig with him, and what is the biggest takeaway you've learned or lessons learned from working with him?
Really cool. I was living in LA, but I was also part-time residing in Nashville still. I was on a little trip in Nashville for about a week. I'm driving through the back hills of Franklin, Tennessee, which I love. I used to live in Franklin. And I get a call from my good buddy out here in LA, Ray Islas, and at the time he was the percussionist with Christina Aguilera. He said, yo, they're having auditions for Christina. I threw your name in. The MD wants you to come in. Not only does he want you to come in, he's going to call you. I gave him your number. I said, man, thank you so much, Ray. I'm indebted. I appreciate it. Spoke to the MD. He said, yeah, come in for the audition. I flew home the next day back to LA. And then he said, but you know what? Before you come and audition for Christina, I got this other artist I'm working with. Come and audition for Babyface, tomorrow night. Just show up at the studio. He gave me the address. I show up. There's 6 other guys, look just like me.
Right there in the studio.
Right there in the studio. 6 other white dudes with guitar in their hands. We're all standing there in the lounge of his multi-million-dollar complex in the heart of Hollywood. And we're like, wow, okay, well, this is a real audition.
Did you know? Did you know any of the guys? Sorry to cut you off. No,
no. It's what we call a cattle call. It's a mini cattle call because like 7 guys is not a lot. Usually, like when you have a casting call for a part out here in LA, there could be anywhere from 50 to 500. That's like a real cattle call, you know. But so it's a mini cattle call, just meaning we're all lined up, you know, waiting to go in. And I went in second. Can you hear that? It's really loud.
A little bit. It's not as bad for.
Okay.
You talk loud, which is great. So we're good.
Okay, cool. So I went in second because I was feeling under the weather. So I asked the guys in the room, and again, here comes my audacity, right? I walk into the room last. I was still on time, but just everybody was super early. So I get there, and it's probably like the audition was at 6 p.m., and I probably got there at like 5:45, you know. But all the other guys are there, and I say, guys, I'm so sorry, man. I feel really sick. I just got off a plane from Nashville, and I feel like I'm coming down with like a bad cold or the flu. And I didn't shake anybody's hands on purpose. I was very vocal about it. I said, I hate to impose, but would you mind if I go in next? Because I'm just going to go home, take some NyQuil, and knock out. And all the guys were like, yeah, man, no problem. Because we all knew no matter when you go in, you know, you're still going to get to audition. You know?
Right.
So you're still auditioning. So I went in second, and I met him. And again, I didn't shake hands because I said, hey, I'm feeling under the weather, so I don't want to spread germs, blah, blah, blah. I went in, I set up, played. Probably it was about 10 minutes that I played. I played like 3 or 4 songs. And the MD was there and Babyface, and they were digging it. And they said, all right, you know, thanks for coming in. We'll be in touch. I was like, great. Thank you so much. Packed up. Bam. I was out the door probably within 15 minutes. I'm talking walking into the studio lounge, asking the guys if I can go, doing the audition, and leaving the building was probably 15, 20 minutes tops.
That's amazing. So, okay, so you went in there. What guitar? Curious, do you remember the guitar you're playing?
Oh, yes. Okay, so here's part of it, gang. And listen up, guitar players. If you guys are trying to hustle a gig, if you guys, again, I keep saying this, Craig, you know what I'm building here. What I refer to as a career musician, all you career musicians out there or aspiring ones, if you're trying to hustle up a good gig, bring your best equipment. Do not show up with some hokey-doke shit that you cannot produce the sounds with. And I got another story for you after this. Danny Elfman, remind me.
I will.
So the guitar I brought in, you ready? Drum roll, please. I brought in my McPherson. Now, McPherson guitars, I am going to sit here and glorify McPherson right now. They're the best fucking acoustic instruments ever built, period. They're amazing. The acoustic guitars that McPherson makes are incredible. And that's because Matt McPherson is the most meticulous, most intense inventor, creator that I have ever known. He's amazing. And the people that he has hired to build these instruments and do the business, Larry and Lori, the Clenks over there, and all the builders, all the luthiers over there, amazing team. I brought in the McPherson. Check this out. The MD told me no need to bring an a guitar. By the way, it was an acoustic audition. He said just acoustic. He said no need to bring a guitar because Faze has hundreds of them here at the studio, and he does. They're all lined up. Man, I brought my McPherson anyway. You know why? I just felt like if I'm gonna give my best,
how would you?
I gotta have something that I can. Now, normally I'm not that guy. Normally, if you tell me, yo, Nomad, I need you to play a gig. Sure. Do you have a stick and a string? Good. I'll be there. Like, I really don't care. I'll play anything. But for some reason, I was bent on bringing my McPherson. Plus, I had it with me because I just came from Nashville. And I was like, you know what? Shit, I'll just bring it. I go in and I open it up. And right away, they're like, whoa, what's that? Because the case is so impressive and the shape of the sound hole is so different. And then when I played it, Kenny was like, whoa, what is that? I was like, oh, man, it's this handmade custom job McPherson. They're made in Wisconsin. They're amazing. He's like, oh, I need one of those. So after I got the gig, I ended up getting him a couple.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I brought the McPherson. So to answer your question. And that's it, guys and gals. If you're going to go in with your best foot, man. You know,
it's like bringing.
Even if. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Even if they tell you don't need gear, just bring some gear just in case. You don't have to be a jerk about it. Don't be like, oh, I'm only playing my gear. If they have a rig that they want you to play, then go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
But also bring your other stuff and say, oh, just in case, I brought some other stuff just in case. So always be extra prepared, right?
You know what else, too, when you said, you got there on time, I know the smartest and the most successful guys, early is not early enough. If you're not there 15, 20 minutes early, you're late.
My rule is that, right, exactly. The rule of thumb is if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
If you're early, you're on time. And I agree. To be honest with you, a lot of times I'll show up an hour before, and here's why. Parking, getting stuff out of the car, because if you're doing big sessions, you have cartage, so you don't have to schlep gear. But even if you have your personal bag, or maybe you brought a special little axe with you or something, getting stuff out of the car, getting administered into the building takes time. Sometimes it depends on what kind of outfit you're working for, and then getting acclimated to your environment.
Right.
So you want to go, well, let's say you've been driving for 90 minutes. You got to go take a leak first. Or worse, let's say you want to get a cup of coffee. Let's say you need some water. Let's say you're sweet talking the people at the front desk to find out the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you get acclimated.
Yeah. Plus, you don't want to go in there and they, 7 o'clock, and then you got to first start playing. I mean, you got to warm up and get your shit together.
Let's talk about warming up, exactly. Yeah. So there you go, all those things. Yes.
So Danny Elfman, tell me the story there. You wanted me to.
Oh, fantastic story. So I get the call, again, a referral from John Powell, who's another huge film composer out here. Danny called John and said, hey, I need a cool guitar player. John referred me. I went in. It was for Men in Black 3. This was 2012. And another dope multi-million-dollar complex studio in Hollywood. This is ones where you're talking to the assistant, one of the assistants, what we call them PAs, which are production assistants. So I'm talking to one of the PAs on the phone, and she's like, okay, what I need you to do, you're going to turn the corner on, 11th, and then once you do that, there's an alley. Once you get to the alley, there's a little gate. You type in the code, blah, 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 blah. So I get in, and then you drive into the complex. So your car is now housed in the complex.
Wow. So it's a massive...
Yeah. So you get in, and then like 3 PAs come out of the woodwork, and they're like, hey, can we help you? What do you need? Do you need anything? And I'm like, I think I'm good. I brought a couple extra instruments, but my cartage guys got, the bulk of it. They're like, okay, great. So they start carrying everything, and then they walk you through the building, and you're walking through, and you're like amazed because everywhere you look, there's some type of just breathtaking object, whether it's a rare piece of furniture or a rare painting or an extremely cool vintage instrument or like an ethnic instrument from, the backwoods of Africa that you're like, oh my gosh, that thing looks insane. I want to get my hands on it, or these huge taiko drums from Asia, like real taiko drums, those big drums that they use in all the movie soundtracks. Now, anyway, so you're walking through, it's just amazing. You go in and you meet everybody. Literally, man, it takes a village. You're talking about a staff of 30 people,
just to keep the place moving.
Yeah, just to keep the place moving, because you have engineers and you have assistant engineers, you have head engineers, you have the head PA, you have assistant PAs, and then you have, just tech nerds that all they do is work on all the computer shit. You have all these people, and then you have the orchestrator and the arranger, who's Danny's best friend, who's amazing. His name is Steve, and I can't think of his last name right now, but look it up. Anyway, Danny Elfman used to be in a group called Oingo Boingo with Steve.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you meet Danny, and he's really soft-spoken, really calm, really cool, collected. Anyway, we start tracking. Check it out. Here's my story, gang, and I promise you, please learn from my mistake. We get halfway through the day. We take a lunch break. They order in a fantastic lunch. We all eat together, including Danny. So we're in one of the lounges eating with Danny Elfman. I mean, it's really cool. That's the fun part of this job. You get to meet some really unique people and oftentimes get to spend some quality time with them. We go back to tracking for the second half of the day, and we get to this one part, and he says, okay, man, I need a wah-wah. I said, okay, cool. So I break out a wah-wah. Now, I had my B rig with me that day, and anybody who knows about cardage, talk about Jerry McPherson or guys like that, they usually have an A rig, a B rig, and even sometimes a C rig. The A rig and the B rig usually are duplicates, or at least as close as possible. So that way, if you're tracking down at Ocean Way, at 10 a.m., but your rig needs to be, across town at 2 p.m., it's almost impossible for your cardage guys to break down the rig at Ocean Way and then bring it over to across town and set it up for the 2 p.m. It's really hard. That's why you have multiple rigs. Just so happened my A rig was at another studio. I don't even remember where it was, but it was somewhere else. I think it was at Chalice on Highland in Hollywood. It was and I think I was working for P. Diddy. That's what it was. I had my A rig set up for P. Diddy on Highland at the studio called Chalice, another beautiful studio. So I got called for the Elfman gig, and I was like, okay, well, I talk to my cardage guy, Mike, M-Y-K-E, Mike Brown, my guitar tech. I love Mike. He's been with me forever. He's amazing. I says, hey, Mikey, go ahead and let's do the B rig for Elfman. He's like, okay, sure, no problem. He sets it all up. It's amazing. I had this one wah-wah, but it was a cheap wah-wah, but I liked it. It was a Behringer wah-wah. And when I say cheap, it's like the parts were not, wasn't well made like a Crybaby or a Vox, but it had this really unique, cool sound. That's why I kept it in the rig, because I just loved the uniqueness of it. Anyway, I start tracking with the wah-wah. He's like, so Danny hits the talk back. He goes, okay, that's cool. He goes, but man, I'm really looking for a Crybaby. I start opening all my cases. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, shit. I don't have a Crybaby in this rig. For some reason, I didn't have a Crybaby in the B rig. Whose fault is that? Is it Mike's? Nope. It's mine. Right. Because I'm in charge of making sure what goes in each rig. And it wasn't there because I never allocated a Crybaby to be in my B rig. That's my fault. I'm pissing my pants virtually. Now, what do I do, bro? Do I say, oh, Danny, I'm so sorry, I don't have a Crybaby? Or do I go get something out, blah, 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 make believe I'm futzing with it, plug it in? How's that? And it still be the same pedal? No, because he's going to know.
He's going to know, yeah, he's going to know. A guy like that is going to tell the sound. If he knew you didn't have a Crybaby in the first place, he's going to know a second time. I
had to come clean. Danny, I can't believe this. I'm so sorry. It's in my A rig, and my A rig is not here, obviously. Is there any way can we take a break? I'll go run to a store, buy one. Can we send a runner? Blah, blah, blah. No. That's fine. Let's just keep going. Anyway, fantastic day. Bro, it was a 12-hour day. I did all the guitars in Men in Black 3. He never called me back. That was 5 years ago.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the fucking lesson. You see what I'm saying?
5 years.
That's the lesson. Please do not ever fucking go unprepared. Be the Boy Scout, the Girl Scout. Have your kit, your Swiss Army knife. Have everything.
Wow. Thank you, man, for sharing that. That is a real good lesson.
Have duplicates. Have triplicates of everything. Be so prepared that when people look at you, they're like, yo, who the fuck you think you are? Rambo? Yes, I'm Rambo. You never know when you're going to get stuck in the jungle.
Yeah. Hey. Wow. So that was a one and done. I'm sure like you've always had like everything with you for every subsequent.
Yeah. And now I kick myself every time I tell this story. And I've only told the story maybe 2 or 3 times. Because it's not something I'm proud of. But what I realize is that we learn things in this life to share with others.
Yeah.
Right? If we can help somebody, then we have to help.
Wow.
Yeah. I know it hit you hard, doesn't it?
Man. Yeah, that sucks. It's like, wow. Well, especially obviously he thought you were he wouldn't have let you track all the guitars on the album if it wasn't your playing. Right. It was like that one thing. At the same time, that being said, it's a little bit unreasonable. It is a little unreasonable because it's not like you didn't have a wah pedal. The specs didn't say bring a crybaby, bring a George Lynch Morley, whatever.
But so here's the deal. This is a deduction that I'm making. Okay. Yeah. It's not. I didn't call him and say, how the hell you never called me? How come you never called me back, Danny? Yeah. I don't know for sure. This is my guess. All I'm saying is that was the scenario, and he's never called me since. So I'm not I'm not saying that, this is a definitive, but that's it. So here's the saving grace for me. You remember Nicole, and I can't pronounce her last name, Nicole Schwartzinger from the Pussycat Dolls, the really gorgeous hot chick, the brunette.
No, I don't remember.
Well, if you watch the movie, even if you look it up on YouTube, she is in the opening credits of the movie. So there's this hot chick in high stilettos with big chatas, and she's like,
I hate
dressed.
that.
It's amazing. She's so fine. Like I tell the story in front of my wife. My wife gets it. So she's all dressed up. She's fine, and she's walking through this hallway, and she's got a birthday cake in her hand, and she's bringing a birthday cake to like this alien or whatever. Well, in that whole opening scene, that's the opening scene. You can look it up on YouTube. You hear nothing but crazy Jimi Hendrix wailing guitar. That's me. So when you check out the opening scene of that movie, you're like, yo, that's Nomad wailing away on the guitar with this hot chick serving birthday cake to an alien. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is cool. And you got to assume you wouldn't have been tracking that whole thing like that and being in that if there was an issue with your playing. And I know is, hey, Danny, if you're listening to this, hook a brother up, man. I think that was a little inflexible, to be honest with you. Yeah, he should have had it, but I mean, it wasn't like it. It wasn't like he left his freaking guitar at home. I mean,
I probably had about 30 guitars on that date.
Yeah,
probably 30. Yeah, so and about 5 amps. Yeah,
Danny, so. I think you need to just loosen up. Anyway, Aretha, did you work with her, or was that another situation like Barbra, like she came in earlier, or?
So for the record date, she wasn't in the studio, but I've worked with her on stage and I met her. She's a sweetheart of a lady. She's no bullshit, She takes charge. She's like, and I'm not going to impersonate her voice because I can't, but she's got a really distinct voice. When Aretha's talking. But she's like, all right, let's run this. I'm ready. Let's go. And if you're not on point, you'd be like, yo, dude, because she doesn't show up for sound check or rehearsals or anything like that. She just, okay, the queen is here. You better fucking do what the queen says. She's a sweetheart and can throw down. I mean, she's a legend. Yeah. Again, that was a Babyface thing that he brought me in on.
Very cool. So, okay, so he's brought you in on a lot of jobs over the last 7 years, and obviously he's bringing you in because you do what you do. So,
yes.
You're originally from New York, or actually, do you want to talk about what you're working on that you're excited about? Do you want to talk about that? Yeah. What are you working on now that you're excited about?
Super excited about everything, actually. So Nomad and Lola, my wife, her alias is Lola. So we have our own group, Nomad and Lola. So we just did a Christmas song. It's being mixed next week. I can't wait. Before I got on this interview with you, I was prepping the files to be mixed by Dave Rideau, an amazing mix engineer out here in LA, Grammy award winning. So her and I wrote this really tongue-in-cheek, cute Christmas song about the antithesis, the polar opposites of the East Coast and the West Coast. So I'm saying I want to go to New York to spend Christmas. She's saying she wants to stay in LA to spend Christmas, and like this little play argument ensues throughout the song. It's awesome.
That's cute, man. So, that's a cute little idea.
It's fun. So I think we're going to make a video. Hopefully, we're going to make a video. So that'll be out, and I'll send you the link for that.
Where can people find this once it's done?
So right now, Nomad and Lola, we don't have a website, but we have a Facebook page. So It's facebook.com/Nomad and Lola.
Okay. Cool.
And you actually, we have a really cool little promo video up right now that you can see us. Bro, we do a version of Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen, acoustic guitar and vocals. It's awesome. You got to check it out.
And this is on Nomad and Lola.
Yeah, the Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else are you working on?
Well, we're working on an EP, so we'll be releasing an EP probably in the first quarter of 2018.
Awesome.
And then
is that difficult? Is that difficult to work with your wife in that capacity?
It definitely has its challenges, and the reason why it's difficult is because of me, because I'm pretty, as you can see, I'm high strung and over the top. So a lot of times, and my work ethic is insane. So as high strung as I am, just in natural conversation, that's how I approach my work. Yeah. So when you're working with me, if you're not burning at 110%, 110% of the time, I'm going to get mad, which means if we're sitting there rehearsing and you fuck up, I'll be like, all right, let's do it again. If you fuck up twice, I'm going to start throwing shit.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm a perfectionist. So anyway, so it has its challenges, but again, talking about what you and I have talked about in the past, just as friends, meditating and learning to be a better person. I know that sounds corny, but it's not.
No, it's great.
Learning to be a better person has definitely helped me, you know.
It's so funny. Like many years ago when I used to publish my newsletter, my wife wrote this thing, the top 10 things that piss Craig off. And like number 1 was like, you know, ask him the same question twice.
I'm the same way.
Number 2 is like waste his time, and then number 3 is like waste his time again. And then, like half of them were like, you know, like waste his, you know, all
That's
stuff
it.
like that. Yeah, it was kind of funny.
That's it. Like she'll say, hey, you know, blah blah blah, XYZ. What do I do with this? And then she'll be like, hey, by the way, remember the other day when I asked you about what I'm supposed to do? I'm like, didn't I tell you the other day? Because what happens is our minds move so rapidly that this is my own little assessment, excuse. We forget a lot of times, or I forget. Like, so if you ask me when I'm not right in that moment, I'm like, oh shit, I told you, I replied to that email, I gave you the answer, but now I don't remember because I'm not in that scenario, you know?
Yeah, I've gone out of my way now, and like, so if she'll ask you something twice, I'm really a lot better. I'll like hesitate because I'm really just taking a deep breath, not like in anger, just because, you know, I need to like not be a dick about that. You know, I need to be like, okay, yeah, you know, and it's, you know, and you know, because you know what? Because I realize that there's got to be a ton of shit that's pissing her off about me.
There you go.
And if she's not being like that, I mean, because I'm not like perfect by a long shot. So if I just felt like, okay, well, if she's not like jumping on my shit, I really have no right to do the same thing. So I need to like man up a little bit, and you know, so I just, you know, I've been doing that.
That's it. So what else am I excited? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, we work together in the house, not really together anymore, but like she's got her business. She's a real estate agent and I got my businesses. Do you guys, what makes it tough for us is the conversation doesn't end sometime.
Woo.
Yeah, it's like,
that's exactly what we deal with on a daily basis. Yes.
Yeah, we're laying down in bed, and I'll just be like, "Babe, yeah, we off the clock."
Off the clock.
Or she'll do that to me sometimes too. You know.
That's right. Because it'll be Friday night, and it's like, okay, we're gonna have date night, and as we're getting ready, we're sitting here talking about the last gig that we were, just organizing the production for,
right?
You know, or we're talking, well, she was booking flights and I was putting together the band and we hired a production manager. And it's like, wait a minute, it's Friday night, it's 7 p.m. We're getting ready to go out to have us time.
Yeah.
Why are we still on the clock? We shouldn't be. Yeah.
Right. That's another challenge.
Or if we get up, you know, we typically get up around 6:30 a.m. with our daughter to get her ready for school and stuff. A lot of times I'll walk into the kitchen and she's already like going, because she's like me. She's got a seriously insane work ethic, much like your wife and yourself, I can imagine.
Yeah, very much.
And so. She's like, literally, bro, it's not even 7 o'clock yet. It's like 6:43. And she's like, okay, so I've been thinking about this and I think we need to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa, dude.
Let me have my coffee at least.
I need a first cup of coffee. Yeah,
that happens. Usually I'm the one like, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, you know, it's, I get it though. It's the same thing. Okay. So you got Nomad and Lola. What else do you got going on that you're excited about and looking forward to?
So I produce a lot of music for what we call library production music for, like you were talking about, sync licenses, which means sync is short for synchronization. And synchronization just means that you're synchronizing the audio of a song to picture. So whether it's a TV show or a film, or any other multimedia use, such as video games, etc. I do a lot of that, so I'm producing several catalogs right now for the library. One is a very sentimental piano and orchestral strings dominated project for a show called Who Do You Think You Are on TLC. It's about genealogy and lineage, ancestry.
That's interesting.
Really cool. I've been composing for that show for a while. And then, so I'm working on that. I'm working on a Latin project for another library, which I'm doing like a Buena Vista Social Club, all Cuban stuff, which I love that stuff. And then I'm trying to start working on an electronica album. Electronica, you know,
like EDM.
Exactly. You know, you're old when you say electronica.
Yeah.
It'll have EDM elements, but you know, it'll have a little bit of house, a little bit of, you know, whatever. It's got all these different things because I am infatuated with the idea of DJing. I love that. So I love Skrillex or, you know, all that stuff, or Cascade or any of that. So I'm trying to get that one going, but I think I have to wait on that because sometimes you really have to, you know, allocate your time properly and put things in proper priority perspective. So those things. What else am I working on? I work with another artist named Kat Graham. She's a fantastic singer, songwriter, dancer, performer, and an actress. She was on the Vampire Diaries for a long time. That show just finished. So I'm her music director. I put bands together for her and do all that stuff. Oh, that's what it was. I just finished another film with John Powell, the new animated movie coming out about the bull called Ferdinand.
Oh, yeah.
So,
wait a minute. Did you work with a guy named Brendan Gilliard? Brandon Gilliard? Bass player?
No.
I thought
did he work on that film too?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
But you have to understand, these sessions take place over the course of a year. So
okay.
You know, there's multiple sessions.
Is there like a dog in that movie or something like that?
I believe so. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to take my dog.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. Yeah, Ferdinand. Yeah, that's interesting. That's funny, man. So you did that. You did the. Now, what did you do for that? The score or?
No. So John Powell did the score.
Mm-hmm.
He's the composer, and then he hires musicians to play all the various parts.
Okay.
So that day he hired me for a flamenco guitar session, and I was tracking with two other flamenco guitarists.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Ramon Stagnero and Adam Del Monte, both amazing players, like two of my heroes out here. I love those guys. So it was the three of us set up in a row, you know, in the studio with these music stands with all this sheet music, all these cues, we call them, and then you look up and there's a big screen of the movie. That's how you
that's interesting.
track a film score, you know. So
you read music?
It's really neat.
You read music, or is it just charts? You do. Where'd you learn how to read?
Well, I studied in high school. I went to a performing arts high school, but I also studied privately. You know, knock wood, thank God for my dad. You know, he made sure that I had private lessons my whole life growing up. So even before I was in proper music school, I knew how to do all that. I was studying really hard with private teachers.
Great. What high school did you go
to? Down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called Dillard School of the Performing Arts.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic program, and big shout out to the Kunishes. I miss Daryl dearly. He was the most incredible teacher. He passed away some years ago, but his wife and son are still alive, and I love them. And he taught me so much about music and how to be a good musician and how to compose and write. And he taught me how to be a good person. You know,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so you're originally from New York and you moved around a lot. What was your childhood like? Like, was it chaotic because of all the moves, or
it's chaotic.
Yeah.
It's chaotic. I found solace in the guitar for sure, and music. I was in a different school every year. You know, for all my formative years of schooling, from elementary all the way up through high school, I was at a different school almost every year.
Wow, that is tough. Yeah, it's hard to you didn't. Most guys I got my friends here, or you probably didn't have that opportunity.
No, I didn't. So I would probably say it was about 6 or 7 schools for the formative years.
Wow.
Over the course of 12, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
So the guitar was your friend, that in a sense.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. In fact, I was so secluded and introverted. My parents used to have to beg me, coerce me, basically, to come out of the room because I was just.
That's amazing. So how did you? You're obviously not introverted now.
No.
But so what was the trigger? What was the switch for you?
From being introverted to being outspoken, you mean?
Yeah. From being introverted to having more confidence to, and just more gregarious like you are now.
It's phases in your life. When you're studying, you have to be secluded. You have to have quiet you time. And like you were saying earlier, again, the amount of hours and focus that it takes to become good at something. Let's talk about our 10,000 hours, quote unquote. The Outliers, fantastic book, fantastic author. You need, that's your phase one, so to speak. You need to just keep your head down and focus on your work. Once you develop the mastery over this skill or set of skills, or at least the somewhat sense of mastery, then you can come out and going to the harvest portion of that. You're blossoming now. And when I got my first gig down in Fort Lauderdale Beach at a cool nightclub, 6 nights a week, playing 6 sets a night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Holy crap!
Yeah, a big 13-piece band like Chicago or Earth, Wind and Fire, and we played everything. We played all that stuff. That was my that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned how to be a showman. There's nothing worse that irks me than seeing a musician on stage, because it is a performance.
Yeah.
And what does a performer do? Perform.
Entertain, perform, yeah.
An entertainer entertains. There's nothing worse to me than seeing a musician on stage and they have no charisma, no stage presence. That kind of irks me. I'm not going to lie. And I don't care if you're a classical violinist or cellist, or performing an opera, or if you're a jazz bebopper, or if you're literally, like you said, Steven Tyler, or Eddie Van Halen. You need to have some sense of stage presence.
Yeah.
And that's where I really learned it. I remember the music director for that gig told me, okay, you got the gig, but now I need you to go home and lose some weight, start eating right, exercising, lose the glasses, go get some contacts.
Wow.
And I'm going to have one of the girls from the band, one of the backup singers, she's going to take you out to get you some clothes.
Wow. That was like baptism by fire, man.
And he said, if you do those 3 things, you can start next week.
And how old were you?
Barely 18.
That's a lot. That's a lot of criticism, in a sense, to accept at that age, and on your first gig. Wow. And you were just like, I guess you were open-minded enough. You said okay, or you wanted the job, or you were really like, well, fuck you, but I really want the job, so I'll do it.
All of the above. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to make sure within a short amount of time that I can do it.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm not going to spit it back in your face. I'm just going to do it quietly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one day you're going to look up and be like, son of a bitch, that guy went and did exactly what I told him he can't do.
Yeah.
And I can't even be mad at him because he did it well.
Yeah. No, righteous indignation has been a good motivator at various times in my life, so I understand that totally, man.
Yes, righteous indignation. I love it.
Okay, so your 2 brothers, your 2 younger brothers, any of them involved in music at all?
They're actors. Well, Jason's an actor. He's the middle brother, and Robbie is a tattoo artist. He's the younger brother. So Jason also does tattooing as well. But so Robbie's really the artist one in the family, the tattoo artist guy. Jason's the actor. That's where his passion lies, and I'm the musician. And we get it from my dad.
Interesting.
My dad's musically inclined. He's also an artist. So yeah.
Wow. Are they out in LA with you? Are they in Florida? Are they in Nashville?
Jason's in Florida, but he travels to Atlanta, Miami, LA all the time for film stuff. And Robbie has his own tattoo shop in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that being said, what do you think the net impact of all this moving around, the hustling, what was the net impact of that on you, either as a person, or what challenges did it give you, or how did it form your outlook or your philosophy on how you view things? And maybe not today, but maybe at one time, and then you've gone anywhere to modify it, perhaps even.
The net impact overall created a positive outcome, okay? Because it taught me, again, I go to that survival tactic mode, okay? No matter where you are in unknown territory with, unfamiliar circumstances and surroundings, environment, you have to adapt. You have to adapt quickly, and then you have to excel. So it taught me how to do that. It really, I believe, it taught me how to be a good leader, because that was number one. Number two, it took away any kind of shame. I am not shameful. I will stand up in front of thousands of people and make a fool of myself, because I had to learn that skill at an early age. If I didn't, I would be a recluse. And I was for a long time until I came out of it. So they taught me how to come out of it. the impact it had on me when I was younger was very tough. It did make me feel extremely insecure and self-conscious.
Sure.
And, you know, and harbored and just basically kept on that conscientious kind of, oh my gosh, I'm not good. I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff.
The little voices, man.
Yes.
The little voices, yeah. And they always come when like you're least equipped to deal with them, you know, when you're most vulnerable. And it's tough to like, you know, get rid of them. It takes a lot of work, a long time. But
That's right.
Whatever you did a good job, because you're certainly not quiet or any of those things now, man. So you worked on it, and it did good for you.
Thank you. I try to balance it. The other thing that it taught me was to learn diplomacy and compassion, because compassion, you never know what somebody else is going through at the moment. Maybe you made a new friend in 6th grade. And in 6th grade, how old are you? 11, right?
Yeah, something like that.
But maybe that new friend comes from a broken family, or maybe their father died, or maybe they don't, blah, blah, blah. So you don't know. So you have to be compassionate so you learn about their situation, and then maybe you can become their friend, and eventually you develop a nice bond. Diplomacy, again, because you never know what's going on in the surroundings around you. You walk into a room, you might think that the ultra meek person standing in the corner who's not saying 2 words is a nobody. But guess what? That person ends up being the freaking CEO who owns the company, who's running the production of the gig you're on, who's paying you, a good amount of money that week to be there, and you put your foot in your mouth because you say something foolish trying to be cool, and then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So you got to learn,
Yeah. Those are good lessons, man.
Yeah.
Once you made that leap, past those, when in the first gigs you had in that 6 nights a week in Fort Lauderdale, 6 sets a night, and as you started moving up the food chain, call it that, as a professional musician, were there any surprises along the way? Like, I know there had to be. Like, what surprised you the most about being a musician that, like, your music teacher didn't teach you, or it's like dating girls. You can read all the books you want, but there's certain things you got to learn on your own.
Yeah, I was. What I realized quickly was that I was a late bloomer, and by the time a lot of kids were 18, they had already experimented with drugs and alcohol, either one or both. I had never touched either, so I didn't even know. I had no vices. I never smoked.
You're
I never
kidding
smoked
me.
pot. I never drank. No. But I didn't have like my first drink until I was well into my 20s. I just didn't have a desire for it. So I forewent all that whole period, that whole teenage rebellious. And you know what I was doing? I was in my room
playing your guitar.
I didn't have friends. Most kids, again, teenagers are going to the mall to hang out starting at 13, 14. And I never asked my parents. What I did, I would ask my dad as soon as we got a new place or a new house, because we were jumping around a lot. We were renting, obviously. But I would say, yo, Pops, can I take the garage or the basement? He's like, yeah, take both. So I would turn the garage and the basement into my sanctuary musically.
Okay.
And then I started putting bands together, and I had band rehearsal at my house every Saturday.
Gotcha.
But I was a stickler, bro. I would be like, yo, you guys you better be there at 10 a.m., my house, bagged lunch in hand, because we're not taking a lunch break. We're eating on set, baby, okay? Right. And I'm not letting you go until we learn the whole fucking show. Like, and if you ask all my best friends now, God bless his soul, Adam Dunn, the drummer, he's passed, but Greg and little Mikey, they will tell you to this day that I was a stickler, man. So that was me. I was never one to go out and get into it. So I learned, to answer your question, I learned that I was a late bloomer. And then I learned that the part of the music business that I didn't understand was the social aspect. And I still stumble on that today. And I think a lot of creative people do, because, again, when you're creating, you have to be in a reclusive state. You cannot be you cannot be influenced by any kind of outside flutter and noise. You can't. You have to be so focused when you're creating this thing that the muse is giving to you from above. So the social part of it is gone in the creation phase. But then the social part of it has to become an element in the promotional and getting it out there phase, because otherwise you're going to have this amazing creation, and guess where it's going to live? On your hard drive forever.
Yeah. That's a good point. So really, in a way, like, you probably were spared a lot of, and your parents were certainly spared a lot of headache and stress because you were so obsessed with your music.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So let's talk about tuition. You know, everybody makes mistakes and pays tuition in their career. If you'd be so kind, maybe share one or two mistakes you made in the past. For example, I forgot my wah-wah pedal, which honestly, I'm not convinced.
I'm not either.
That seems like, and if that's his reason, to me, again, I'm a nobody, but that seems like an unreasonable, anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Danny Elfman. But, maybe one or two mistakes you made and what the lessons that you learned from them.
One mistake that I've made, and I've made it over and over several times, is not shutting up. So I've been listening to one speaker in particular who said he asked Nelson Mandela what is the piece of information that he learned to help him become a great leader. He said, well, my father, Nelson Mandela's father, was a tribal leader growing up, and Nelson would always go with him to all the tribal meetings. And he said they would all sit in a circle so they could all look at each other, and everybody was equal. So there was no head of anything. They were equal parts, right? But what he picked up from his father is that whenever he spoke, he would always make eye contact with everyone, number one. So you're treating everybody with this equity, right? It's equitable, how do you say, intangibility, okay? Yeah. That has to exist. And then the second piece was his father always was the last to speak. So he would let everybody in the circle speak without influence. So he wouldn't make faces. He wouldn't frown. He wouldn't smile. He wouldn't nod his head. He wouldn't say anything. He would hear everybody's opinion and objective and perspective first, and then he would be the last to speak. So I've learned over time that it's better to not try to finish other people's sentences, to not try to bulldoze what people are trying to get out, even if they can't get it out fast enough for you, if they can't communicate it fast enough, because I am on a super high speed clock, being an Italian New Yorker, it's just the way it is. So that mistake that I've made time and time again is opening my mouth prematurely before thinking, or, as we say, hastily, right? That's the number one thing for me. Just becoming a better listener and a better communicator.
Yeah. That was probably like the number one thing I got out of, like, when I went to counseling, because I wanted to have better interactions with my wife. And I realized if I'm doing all the talking, that's not an interaction. that's not a relationship, and like, I was like, you know what? I totally get that. And that really, and then when I first started doing it, I would be listening and she's like, why aren't you saying anything? I said, well, I'm just waiting for you to finish. So it was almost like, she was used to, like, Craig 1.0 instead of Craig 2.0. So she's like, oh, right. Okay. So now it's like, it's cool. It's like been a long time now, but yeah, that's,
it's hilarious.
I think a lot of that, I know for me anyway, I read this one time, and I know in my case it was true. When people do that because I felt insecure, and I was always trying to prove how much I know. I wanted to show everybody, hey, and it had nothing to do with, like, proving I'm smarter than you, because I don't give a shit about that. But it had to do with me, like, not feeling, like, always feeling I needed to be, always feeling that I was insecure, and I had to somehow prove to myself, I don't know, but
That's right.
And once
That's right.
For me, once I started realize that, I'm like, you know what, I'm actually pretty okay with where I am now. I need to stop this. And it was a process, like, over time, but yeah, that's what my thing was. So
that's it. Well, it's you said, we're brothers from another mother. I mean, it's true. We definitely have a parallel thing going on here.
Yeah. What about the other way? Is there like one or two things that you did that at the time were out of your comfort zone, but hindsight being 2020 turned into big breakthroughs? I would say one of them is going to accepting that gig. The Fort Lauderdale thing, that had to be out of your comfort zone at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, here's another great one. You ready? Okay. Yeah. So that's when I was just shy of 20, probably almost 2 years, or at least a year and a half shy of 20. Now, fast forward some 25 odd years later, or 20 and change years later, Babyface, who's the guy that I work for on the road, because let me make this clear. I only have one road gig, and that's his. Okay. And I chose that because I've had many opportunities to go on tour with lots of other artists, Shakira being one of them a couple times, and several other artists as well, where I've had offers at least. And usually either they don't work out or I end up turning them down. And here's why, because I committed to say, you know what, if I'm going to go on the road, I'm only going to go on the road with one artist. That way I'm home, okay? I'm only gone sometimes, because an artist like him, we only do weekend dates, what we call weekend warriors or spot dates, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the one gig that I go out. Well, now we're in rehearsals 2 years ago, and we're revamping the show. You always have to revamp the show every so often. So he brings in a very famous choreographer who used to work with Michael Jackson to choreograph the show, in the sense that, not like, we're not the Rockettes where we're sitting here doing leg kicks and spins, but to give the show some kind of motion and visual aesthetic energy. Exactly.
Yeah.
So at first I was like, whoa.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to finish your sentence.
Thank you. You did a good job, though. So at first I'm thinking to myself, whoa. F this. I'm out of here. This sucks. I'm not dancing. This is ridiculous. I didn't study all these years to be, a doctorate of music, which I never got my doctorate. I never got my college degree, but that's the level I feel like after all the you put in. I didn't study all these years to be freaking doing steps on stage. Yeah. This is so. And then it took. That was my first initial reaction internally, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let's think about this. So I have 10 years history with this guy. We have a good working rapport. He's trying to only make his show better. I'm his musical director. I am part of that responsibility. It is also, if that's his wish, it is also something that I have to assimilate with and say, okay, let's do this together. Let's work for a better show. All these different reasons. Anyway, long story short, I go in, and the same thing I did 20 some odd years earlier, when the guy told me I was fat, lose the glasses, and I had to get a better wardrobe. I said, okay. I walk in the next day. The choreographer's there. I say, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. It was 4 days of learning how to play all the parts that I already knew while implementing these steps. And guess what? I do it like clockwork now. I applied myself. So much so to the point where the band members are like, yo, dude, you just like freaking impressed us. Like the fact that you just stepped up to the plate and did that shit and did it like hardcore all the way, like that shit's impressive. To this day, like, the sax player tells me, he's like, man, I can't believe, wow. He's like, you're killing it, bro. Because he's really good at dancing. He's a natural dancer. I'm not. I have to work really hard at it. So I always look up to him. I'm like, hey, Andre, coach me, man. If you see me doing something that doesn't look smooth, tell me. And we've kind of, deemed him the band choreographer since. Right. So he's, even to this day, he's telling me. So that's an example of, again, where I stepped up to the plate. Now, was I bashful or ashamed of it at first? Yes, I was. Did I overcome that fear? Yes. Am I better for it? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Well, also, I guess you as a musical director, it's incumbent on you to set that tone of leadership too. So you really couldn't, the fact that you did it, solidified your role as a leader, if nothing else too,
That's right. And I realized, I said, well, either this is going to be the line in the sand where I quit the gig because I will be forced to, because if I don't do it, he's not going to, he's going to be like, yo, dude, you either got to do it or you're fired. He wouldn't tell me like that, but that's how it would be.
Sure.
Or I could continue doing it. And look, I thought about it. I was like, well, maybe it's time for me to just go on. But then I'm like, wait a minute, why would I do that to myself? I worked really hard to get to this point. I have an amazing relationship with this man. He's provided me with some amazing work. I have a lot of credits owed to him because he's made the hookup. Why would I just pull the plug on this relationship like that?
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I do. I get it. I get it. It's a tough spot to be in, but you don't need me to tell you made the right decision.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Can my buddies rag on me like, no, man, we saw you dancing on stage. Yeah. Shut up. Whatever. But
who cares?
Are we kids?
Yeah. Who's paying the bills? When your buddies cut your check for your mortgage, they could.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
So, like, if you had to go back and give advice to little Nomad, what would you have told yourself?
Do not give up on your dreams. I know that sounds so cliche, and if you listen, I like I was telling you earlier, I read a lot of books, I watch and listen to a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts, and it's cliche because every person, every successful, quote unquote successful person you listen to, tells you do not give up on your dreams. I would tell them, you know what, Nomad, how do you think buildings exist? How do you think airplanes exist? How do you think cars exist? You know why? Because somebody had a crazy dream and said, wait a minute. I believe humans can be mobile, not only on the ground, but in the air. Imagine the blowback on that. Yeah. Man, you're fucking crazy, Craig. Yeah. There's no way you're going to make humans fly. Dude, Craig, you lost it. I'm done with you, bro. Yeah, I can't even be associated with you. Imagine.
Yeah.
So why would I let my adult self tell my dreamer self, say, Nomad, you're fucking crazy. You can't change your name. You can't come up with an artist alias. You can't be a successful artist. You can't go on tour as Nomad and Lola. You're tripping, dude. You need to give that shit up.
Yeah.
But that's the internal dialogue that we face. And Stephen Pressfield put it best. That's the resistance. He's the author of The War of Art.
I read that book. Fantastic book. I read that when it came out about 10 years ago. Maybe a longer even. Yeah, it's a good book.
Yes. That is the resistance that we all face. Every day we are faced with that.
I interviewed him when I used to publish my monthly newsletter. Yeah. When I used to publish my monthly newsletter, I interviewed him.
I'm jealous, bro. I'm jealous.
If I have that recording, let me make a note. I'll send it to you. It's got to be somewhere on my hard drive here. Yeah, Stephen Pressfield.
What was that like? He is so cool. I love that guy.
Less compelling than his book. He's really mellow. He's really mellow.
He's older now, right?
I don't know how old he was. I don't know, but he was more mellow, and I was, you know what it was? It was my expectations. I came in with such the same enthusiasm you have for his book.
Yeah.
And I was expecting him to share in my enthusiasm.
Right.
It wasn't going. It was just, he was just chilling out. Or, maybe he's done a ton of interviews. I don't know. But
sure.
The book was wonderful. It was just like I was expecting more. I wanted more energy. And, he's probably giving me as much as he had. Or, maybe he wasn't interested in me, what I was saying,
Right.
But so, it's funny when you interview people because what makes the interview good is the participant. Because, I'm the same dude every time. So I'm not really if the person on the other end is willing to share their story, be vulnerable a little bit, participate, be open, it's a great conversation. And I don't even look at it as an interview, it's a conversation, because that's a conversation I like having with people.
Right.
I don't want to talk about the fish on the wall. I don't have time, or I'm not interested. I don't care about the fucking fish tacos picture on Facebook.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Get real or get gone. That's sort of how
That's it.
Let's talk about gear just for a little bit. Man, do you even have a go-to guitar? I mean, that's like, it's like having a harem full of women and saying, who's your go-to wife? Is that even possible to have I saw the guitars you have. It's like,
oh man, if I had to be on a desert island with one guitar.
No, don't even make it one, make it 3 or 4.
Oh, thank you. Because I was going to say I would have to jump in the ocean and die with the sharks because I couldn't choose. But
4 or 5
definitely,
even.
A McPherson. I got to have a McPherson acoustic.
Okay.
I can't live without it. A really good Spanish-made flamenco nylon string guitar. I don't care who makes it because there's so many amazing luthiers. I have one here that I love, but it's a no name and it's so amazing. So a good nylon string, a McPherson, and a Telecaster, a really good Tele.
Really? Like what brand? What brand do you like?
Oh, no brand. I like the custom jobbies.
Okay.
I have probably about 8, or I might have about 10 Telecasters, all different. I have 2 Fenders, maybe 3 Fenders, but all the rest are off the wall luthiers that I love. Yeah, one that I really love is called Lush. He's out here in LA. He makes them right out here, a couple miles from my house. His name is Eric Lush, Lush. He has this Tele that I just freaking love. Can't get enough of it. He put the TV Jones pickups in it from the old Gretsch guitars, and it's got a tailpiece, a stationary tailpiece, the one that's pinned down, doesn't have a Bigsby on it.
Yeah.
And something about that tailpiece with the way he cut the wood and those TV Jones pickups that just makes that guitar sing and feel like it's, if I just had, as an electric, if I could only play that, it would be great. But then sometimes when I want to do some rock shit and get really metaled out, I want to grab the Ibanez Gem 777,
Sure.
But then sometimes when I want to get really artsy and go into my, hipster phase and pull out my fake beard and pointy shoes and skinny jeans, then I'm going to look for like some off the wall. I might play my Dan Electro baritone through some crazy reverb unit, or I might go for one of my off the wall, a no name, literally, Sears and Roebuck era type guitars.
Sure.
But then if I want to do some like nice power chords with some sweet solos, I might go for my Gibson Les Paul Studio that I love, or I might, if I want to bring out some, really pointed lead parts and maybe with some harmony stacks, I'll pull out my SG. If I want to put on my blues hat that day and I just want to get earthy and really vibey, I'm going to pick up one of my 335s, So, if I feel like a Mumford & Sons, I'm going to pick up my mandolin. If I feel like Jason Mraz, I'm going to pick up my 8-string ukulele.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because I do so many different things, I wear so many different creative hats. I literally am comfortable in any scenario, playing any genre through any kind of a rig.
Yeah, and
I don't mean that to sound like an egotistical jerk.
No, you're not. And I watched all your videos, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I mean, everything you're saying is true. It's not condescending. It's not egotistical at all. It's like functional. I totally get it. I'll tell you, it's interesting. I've talked to a lot of guys, interviewed different builders, and this and that. It's weird. TV Jones pickups. There's certain brands of pickups. They're more popular on the West Coast. Or on the western half. Yeah, really weird. The western half of, like you don't usually see guys in, I don't know, builders on the East Coast. Oh, yeah, I got a TV Jones pickup. I don't know why. It's just, guys over there.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It is.
Now, what's even more interesting is that I call those pickups out because, Craig, I'm going to be honest with you, and all the listeners, I'm going to be honest with you guys and gals. I am not the gear guy. I'm not the guru. I have a ton of gear, but again, it's all about functionality. So I know a lot of guys who get really fanatical about each component of the guitar. So whether it be the pickups and how they're wound and what they're wound for, the type of materials, or whether it be the way that the neck is set to the body or the bridge settings or, the pots and all this. I am not that guy. I cannot talk to you about it. Intelligently, at least. I know how everything works and what they're for, but I am not the guy that says, "Oh yeah, you got to get the Lindley Fralin pickups because on this '69 Strat because they go blah 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 and this and that." I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't even know the years. Like, how you have the good Gibsons and the good Fenders, the vintage years, the good. I can't tell you the years that are dope. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what a gold top is. I know what a burst is. I know that anything 60s is fucking amazing because those are so rare.
Yeah.
I know 70s are less rare, so they're a little cheaper. But now the 70s are becoming a little more expensive as time goes on. I'm not the guy about the woods. Don't get me started with, the rosewood versus the Brazilian mahogany and blah, 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 and this and that. I'm not that guy. Yeah. I play to emit sounds. And once I get those sounds, I'm happy. and that's it.
Which I think, which I think imparts a lesson of, you know, what do you really want to be successful as a career guitarist, as you've used that term. You don't need to be focusing on, you know, how many times the pickup was wound, or is it overwound or underwound, or is it high pots, low pots? You need to play your guitar.
You need to shut up and play. Frank Zappa said it best. Yeah. He did a whole album series, Shut Up and Play Guitar.
I have that.
Yeah. I love that stuff. This is true. Frank was one of those interesting characters that was mechanically inclined and creatively inclined, but he's a rare bird. But if you notice, he wasn't the most incredible guitar player either. So, you know, again.
You know what? I agree with you if you're talking about melodically.
Right.
But,
right,
I mean, if you're talking about, like, proficiency, he was great, but like I'd rather listen to David Gilmour,
right? Absolutely.
You know, me personally. I mean, because I never understood. Like I have like a bunch of Frank Zappa albums, and I struggle to listen to him, to be very honest. I mean, I recognize he was more like an orchestra leader, but like that's just not something that, you know. Again, time is X. When for me, I want to like feel it here in my heart. You know, I want to like connect, and I struggle with that with Zappa stuff. That's all, you know.
It's okay. It's like eating a very rare dish or drinking a very rare wine, or having the palate to understand the differences in wines, or even microbrews. Like microbrews are so popular right now. I feel like if you and I lived in close proximity, we would do two things all the time. We would go to the gym together, and we would go drink beers together. You know,
have a cigar and smoke cigars.
Cigar. There you go. So three things. There you go. So, but like when you drink a really hoppy IPA, and if you're not into the hoppiness, you can't, like, I can't do it. I don't like the taste of that hoppiness. Right. I cannot drink an IPA and enjoy it. So it's okay. It's just more, it's complexity of that taste is not for my palate.
Right.
So, and
that's
you know,
a good
obviously
example, Zappa music. Yeah.
So Zappa music doesn't have to be for you. It's okay. Right. But I guarantee you and I could talk about Eddie Van Halen and both be, you know, equally, you know, satiated.
Equally satiated. Hey, and just for the trolls listening to this, I'm not saying Frank Zappa sex. I'm saying I don't like it the way I don't like vanilla ice cream. You know, it's just not my flavor.
The way I don't like hoppy IPAs.
The way that's right. The way Nomad doesn't like hoppy IPAs. You know, I haven't. You know, I would tell you, I haven't had a beer in probably 40 years. I drink like alcohol. It's really funny. Yeah. I think like maybe I had a what's that called? When I went to the Dominican Republic, Presidente, I had one of those too. Yeah. They would serve them ice cold off the street. That's the last beer I remember having, and man, that was like really, really, really good stuff. So maybe not 40 years. Maybe I've had 5 beers in the last 25, 30 years. Yeah.
Well, I love a good whiskey and a good scotch.
Yeah, I like whiskey, scotch, tequila. You know, it's more.
And that goes with cigars.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, pretty much.
I love Gallon. So
how about who are your biggest influences guitar-wise? And I'm sure they're far and wide.
It's crazy. So it started with Eddie. When I saw Eddie on MTV back in 1984, I was 11 or 12. I freaked out. I told my dad, I got to do it. So we had a student model electric Strat. It was a student model, so it was a smaller scale. It was under the bed. I put it under the bed because the teacher that I had when I was about 10 or 11 was teaching me Mary Had a Little Lamb. I was like, this. I didn't pick up the guitar to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, so I put it under the bed. I had a guitar and a little Champ, a Fender. And anyway, we ended up keeping them. My dad was like, nah, we don't sell. We'll just keep it. I saw Eddie. I went right to the bed. I got the guitar out, blew off the dust, picked it up, plugged it into the amp, said, Dad, I'm going to be that guy. He's like, all right, cool. Let's get you signed up. So next thing you know, for a year, I was self-taught. We went to the store. He bought me an Ibanez Super Metal distortion pedal.
Wow. Yeah. Your dad was really cool. He was very supportive of your art.
Cool, bro.
Very cool, man.
Next thing you know, every Friday night, he's inviting all of his buddies over. Hey, you got to hear my boy play. Wait till you hear him play. The kid's freaking amazing. You know, like.
That's really nice, man. That's great. Yeah. That's really cool, man. Very
That
cool.
was it.
So
Eddie was a huge influence. And then Paco de Lucia, George Benson, Pat Metheny, Wes Montgomery, Al Di Viola, Frank Gambale, Alan Holdsworth, Yngwie Malmsteen, Paul Gilbert. I mean, I could go on for 3 hours.
Yeah. No, I hear you. A lot of those guys are like Guitar Institute Musicians Institute or Guitar Institute. Yeah.
I was always on the fence between the technicians and the harp players. I always liked both. So to this day, I have some good technique, but I can't shred quite as good as Paul Gilbert, and I can't play flamenco quite as good as Paco de Lucia did. But I'm somewhere in the middle of everything. I put enough heart and soul into it, but I still have some decent technique. So I'm like kind of right in the middle. But if you ask me to cut heads with Pat Metheny or Frank Gambale, I can't. But if you ask me to get up on stage and just be myself, I can.
Yeah, but you're also, your frame of reference is like not normal. I mean, you're like picking literally like maybe the best people on earth and saying, well, I'm not really as good as them. All right, we'll cut you some slack for this for this call anyway.
But it's funny. I just saw Steve Vai play a couple songs with Al Di Meola. It was an Al Di Meola concert out here in LA, and Steve came up and was his guest. And I thought to myself, I finally got to that point where if I knew those guys and I know Steve, but he doesn't know me, but if I knew them well enough and they invited me to come on stage and jam with them, I could now. I'm finally confident enough and secure enough in myself of who Nomad is and how I play that I could go on stage with Al Di Meola and Steve Vai. So for me, that's a huge point to get to because again, like you said, that's not a. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good, man. This is it's about you, man. It's interesting. The two players I hear the most that changed people: Eddie Van Halen on the rock side and Brad Paisley on the country side.
There you go.
Yeah, it's very consistent. And it depends on the age as well. But it's sometimes it's Stevie Ray, but usually it's Eddie. 90% of the time on the rock side it's Eddie, and then on the country side it's Brad Paisley.
And all the country guys. Oh my gosh! But I love all the guys that came before him. Roy Buchanan, Danny Gatton.
Danny Gatton. Roy Buchanan.
Exactly.
What soul the guy had in that guitar. Right. I mean, he would I saw some stuff. You'd see some stuff on YouTube and he's like playing out of like a fucking AM radio speaker and it just still sounds like, oh my God, that's Roy Buchanan, and it's just what a performer, man.
Not to talk about Chet Atkins or Travis. Yeah, Merle. Go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead. I was done.
Yeah. No, all those. I wanted to say that I love all the country guys too. So.
Yeah. Did you play country when you were in Nashville, or you specialized mostly in the Latin guitars?
I was known as the R&B Latin guy while I was in Nashville, which was smart, and I did that on purpose because I wasn't going to try to be a country guy. There's too many great country players in Nashville. Yeah. I was always infatuated with the country picking, the chicken picking, but I knew I could never be Brett Mason's level. So I said, let me find my own little niche. And I already had that niche in me, the R&B, soul, funk, and the Latin, anything Latin. So I covered that. So I did tons of sessions within those genres. And that's the guy I became known for. And that's how Jerry McPherson and I became friends, because we did a couple dates together, session dates, where he was like the electric, effects guy and all the rock stuff. And then I was the acoustic guy doing all the finger picking acoustic and or the wah-wah funky stuff. Yeah. So we developed a friendship, and it was like, wow, I respected him so much, and amazingly he respects me because I always thought he was way higher than me. I just love, and that's the other thing, man. When you get to this point, you learn that the real cats, there's no egos. There's no egos, man.
Well, someone said, I forgot who I was interviewing, and I regret it not writing it down exactly, but he said, you know what? The 10 best musicians in the world are sitting in the room, and they're all worried about the other 9 guys. Everybody's right. It's like what you're saying. Oh, I can't believe Jerry. Jerry's probably thinking the same thing, and he's like, holy shit, Nomad, this guy rips it. So I think when you get to that point of, if you're like cocky, you're just an asshole, kind of, I mean, most of the guys that are really good are really nice, people, and they're like very humble, a lot of humility, like you said.
Right.
Hey, this is Craig Garber. That's the end of part 1 of our interview with Nomad, formerly known as, or the artist also known as, Michael Ripoll. Check out part 2 in our next episode. Nomad has a ton of really cool personal reveals that he's going to share with us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next time. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.